Hello and welcome to COS Indiana Live as we bring you Roundtable. The Roundtable segment is presented here every fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We'll be focusing on education and discussion of the topics and challenges we all face as we use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Join us now as we bring you COS Indiana Roundtable with our MC, John Ackerman.
Welcome back to COS Indiana Roundtable. This is the 150th edition of our Monday night COS Indiana Live, 150th edition. I'm your host, John Ackerman. I have something I want to tell you about, and it's that we have a newsletter that comes out regularly by email, and before the end of the roundtable, we're going to give you a link so you can subscribe to it. Joining me in a few moments will be a few members of our state leadership team, plus a very special guest. And together we will discuss 4 examples of government overreach. Government overreach. So if you have a comment or question about government overreach, you can ask it right now. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, just click the comment button and enter your question. Plus, we have the ability to take phone calls. I want to bring our state communications director, Ken Kashuba, on the screen and talk to him about the phone calling. So, hi, Ken. Welcome back.
Hi, John. Good to be back.
Hey, how does this phone call thing work?
Well, John, it's pretty simple. All you got to do is pick up your smartphone, or if you're one of the lucky ones that still has a landline, you just pick up your phone and dial 317-426-8689, the number that's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. And when you dial that number, you'll have a pleasant operator who will ask you to state your name. And then I will be able to pick you up as a screener and basically kind of screen you to ask you what your question or comment might be, and then tell you when we will bring you on live. We have to get the attention of our master of ceremonies to make sure that we can quiet everybody down in order to get your voice heard. And that's how it works. Pretty simple.
Okay, so Ken, you're the first real live person they'll talk to.
That's right.
After they hear the nice voice that says state your name.
That's right. You know,
okay.
That robocall.
Looking forward to getting a few phone calls tonight.
That's true.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Well, you can also email the roundtable tonight during the live broadcast or any time during the next days or weeks or months. Our email address is raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. I'll read that again. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Now, after the roundtable conversation on government overreach, I'm going to invite you to join Convention of States and show you how you can volunteer to help us make a difference. Now, before bringing the panel on, let me ask you to help us grow our audience. If you would just click the like and share buttons, and also you can make a comment or ask a question. The Facebook and YouTube algorithms, algorithms notice viewer responses. They find out that something's going on and they want to show it to more of their users. They want to attract eyeballs. So you can help us grow this audience by clicking like and share and by making a comment. Now, the first panel member that I want to join with me and Ken is going to be Marty Wood. Marty is our state legislative liaison. And Marty, I'm going to ask you in a minute to talk about the call to action. We've got something that's going on tomorrow the 24th of May. There's going to be a COS rally at the state capitol. Marty, tell us what that's all about. Oops, you need to unmute. I see your lips, but I don't hear your voice. Okay.
The governor vetoed HEA 1041, which was set up to not allow males to participate in female sports. And we feel this is a violation of women's rights. And we are in support of an override of the governor's veto. So we are asking everybody, especially young girls, women in athletics, friends of women in athletics, to get down and rally with us at the State House tomorrow. We're going to go inside and hold our representatives accountable and hopefully override the veto.
Okay, what time tomorrow, Marty?
We'll be meeting down on the east side of the State House at 12:45.
Okay.
And the vote is scheduled for 1:30. So we'll gather, walk in through security, and go to the respective chambers to, like I say, hold them accountable.
Okay, this is a live broadcast, so when we say tomorrow, we mean Tuesday, May 24th.
Correct. Eastern time.
If you're watching, Eastern time, yeah. If you're watching the recording of this, you don't know what tomorrow means. It might be yesterday. Don't want to get confusing there, but remember, Tuesday, May 24th, 12:45 p.m. at the east end of the Capitol, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Hope to see a lot of people there, and hope to see a strong vote. It only takes, 51% to override a veto.
It takes a simple majority in both houses. Yep. That's correct.
Yep. So we do expect to see that happen. So thanks, Marty. And we're going to bring the rest of our state leadership team on now. It's always fun to see who's coming in next. There, Ken, you're back. Okay.
Yeah, I've been popping in and out.
All right. And there's Gary Harbaugh. He's a member of our Indiana team. And Rick Lyon, our event coordinator.
Hey, John. Good to see everybody.
And there should be one more. There he is, the Grand Poobah himself.
Hey, Dale. Wait a minute. Grand Poobah. That does, huh?
Dale Parrish, our state director. Joining these middle-aged gentlemen.
This is getting worse and worse, John.
I'm about to get fired, I guess. Okay. But joining the five who you see here with me is going to be a young lady by the name of Maya Phillips. Hello, Maya. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're glad that you can grace us with your presence. Tell us where in the world you are right now as you speak to us.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Washington, D.C. I am completing a summer internship with America First Policy Institute. I'm working with their legal side at the moment, which has been a great experience. And I am connected with Convention of States. I started out here in Indiana as the Young Americans for Convention of States coordinator. So I have very good ties with Convention of States, and I'm glad to be back.
Well, I've known your father for quite a while, but this roundtable thing is the first time that I've ever personally really met you, even though you're just a flat image on a screen in front of me, but you're a real live person, a patriot, and college student, right?
Yes, I'm a rising senior now, which is crazy to say, at Patrick Henry College. So.
Patrick Henry. Okay. Well, here's our roundtable. We're complete now. And as I've already mentioned, our topic is government overreach. Now, the preamble to the Constitution makes it very clear what the purpose of the federal government is. And here I'm quoting, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Anything beyond that is overreach. Think about it. Now, to this end, the Constitution has allocated to the federal government certain enumerated powers and limited powers. The 10th Amendment ensures that, here I'm quoting again, all other powers are reserved to the states or to the people. These limits have been and are being breached. We're going to dive into 4 examples of how the federal government is going way, way beyond its boundaries, violating the Constitution, overreaching, and interfering with what properly belongs to the states or to the people. First thing, we're going to take a look at the so-called government disinformation, the Disinformation Governance Board. I'm having a lot of trouble talking tonight, okay? The DGB, Disinformation Governance Board. Sounds an awful lot like KGB, but we're not going to go there. Now, according to the news, this thing has been paused, whatever that might mean. But here's my question to the panel. What is this Disinformation Governance Board, and what's wrong with the idea? And Maya, since you're our guest, I want to throw that question to you first. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so from my understanding of the DGB, it was created by the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Homeland Security stated that the DGB's main purpose was to help officers stop misinformation, specifically quoting the past elections with Russian interference, as they like to call it. So the moment they say stop misinformation or flag certain speech that they view as misinformation, it should be a red flag, as it is a clear violation of the First Amendment. And it really begs the question of who gets to decide what is misinformation and what are the guidelines for it. And seeing as there's no clear lines, it can very easily go way further than anyone intended. And this is dangerous not only for conservatives, Republicans, Convention of States, people who love freedom, but also for the left as well, as there are many other people who would say that what the left is saying is misinformation, and there are many people who would say what the right is saying is misinformation. So this isn't dangerous along party lines, but just dangerous for people in general.
Interesting. Very good. Before I ask any other panel members to kick in, I found just the other day, the conventionofstates.com published this article. Don't know if you can read it very well, but it's called, "Is This the End of the Ministry of Truth?" And kind of funny in here, in that article, it says that Nina Jankowicz, who was the director, who resigned last week, it says that her resignation statement offered a hint as to the real reason the Ministry of Truth failed. And I'm reading from this article. She explained that it was, quote, deeply disappointing that mischaracterizations of the board became a distraction from the department's vital work, end quote. In other words, the writer of this article, who is Jacob Fay, Jacob writes, in other words, it was, according to the so-called disinformation expert, it was actually misinformation about the Disinformation Board that resulted in its suspension. Now, if that's not circular reasoning, what is, you know? So, Gary, you're looking real good there with that U.S. flag right behind you. What do you have to think about what's wrong with this idea of having a DGB to look over things for us?
John, I think the short answer is everything is wrong about having a Disinformation Governance Board. The idea behind the First Amendment was simply that we should have the free exchange of ideas, and all kinds of ideas, most of which we might all disagree with, but we should have free expression of ideas. And really, it's the public argument that people make, you know, pro and con for whatever viewpoint they have. That's how we solve problems. And when you start letting the government limit who gets to say what, you have the end of freedom and the end of problem solving.
Yeah, and I think part of the genius of the American system is the coming together of different points of view, and then we work together to reach a resolution and a consensus. And that's really a pretty good description of what happened in 1775 and 1776. And I see Ken's hand there. Ken, do we have a caller or what?
Well, we have a question from the caller. She was
right.
not able to hang on the line, so she submitted her question. And that's from Diane Jones says, doesn't the Constitution and Bill of Rights already limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government? So I thought we'd get her question up there.
Will anybody have a thought on that? Marty?
Yeah, I think in the preamble that you mentioned, and Maya certainly did a great job explaining this particular issue, but it kind of opens that proverbial Pandora's box. But under the promote the general welfare, people have, again, taken that language and put perspective behind it, their own perspective. And instead of that representing the republic, the general welfare of the republic and all of the states, in the general sense that it was interpreted and meant to be interpreted, it's picking up every single bit of special interest group, every perspective of every group, of every politician. If you look at the number of bills that passed through our legislature in Indiana, through Congress, it's hard to pick one that is not overreach of the government. And, just look at what's happened in the last 2 years. There's been no facts, no data, no science, no true science that has entered into this equation. It's all been about perspective and about, the language of the media spreading, what it wants to say, what it wants to spread, the message that it wants to spread, commercials on TV, everything.
Yep.
It's getting really out of control.
Yep, this is true. Well, Rick, and then Ken has something else. Rick, what are you going to say?
Go ahead, let Rick go.
Okay. Well, I just think this Disinformation Governance Board is the most brazenly unconstitutional thing that I've ever seen. And the people putting it forth aren't even apologizing for it. I mean, it's obviously a violation of the First Amendment, but yet, here we are debating its existence. And, but, really what it boils down to is just government censorship. And, they censor any alternative ideas or any dissent or disagreement. And then they're using it, they're going to use it to promote whatever their party line is by whatever party's in power. So it's things like this that we need to think twice, because currently the party in power pushing it, someday they're not going to be in power and the other side's going to be in power. So is that really what they want? So, I think the other thing about it too is that problems don't get solved. Problems get buried. We don't find solutions because we can't debate about them or talk about them. And then the lies and mistruths actually get promoted.
Yeah. Well, hold on a second, Dale. Ken had his hand up first. Ken?
I just wanted to say that got another question, and I know we're dealing with government overreach tonight, which opens up a broad expanse of questions that could come in. I don't want to deviate from the misinformation we started talking about, but David Todd had a question, and I thought we might sneak it in now.
Sure. Can the federal government make us under the jurisdiction of the World Health Organization without the consent of the governed? Ooh. Dale, you want to take a crack at that? I see a hand.
No, not really. I don't think so. I think consent of the governed. I think what that means is that our legislature would have to approve anything like this. If I understand what little I know about this latest movement under the World Health Organization, I would think that our legislature would have to approve something like this. I don't think this could be done by just the executive branch.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the executive branch try.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not talking about one party or the other. I wouldn't be surprised to see either party try something like that, but it shouldn't happen, and it wouldn't be allowed by the courts.
Maybe someone else has got some perspective on this, but I just wanted to make a comment about the Disinformation Board. But I'll come back on that.
Well, Marty had a hand up there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to unfortunately answer a little bit more simply. I'm going to say yes, because we're likely to let them. We have not been standing up as the people. Behind Dale, you see we the people.
Yeah.
And we have not, as a people, we have not been standing up to defend our rights. We have not been demanding those rights through our legislators and our Congress. And so that's why the things have been going the way they've been going for generations now. We've been letting the executive branch, the judicial branch, run this country.
Yeah. And that's what Convention of States action is all about. It's we the people rising up through our state legislatures to say to the federal government, time to stop the shenanigans. Okay,
right.
Dale, you had a comment back on the Disinformation Board?
Yeah, John. My comment. I love to say this anymore. You know, what could possibly go wrong with something like this? When you stop and think, what could possibly go wrong with this? This is this would work. This would work against or in favor of whatever administration was in power, and it's clearly, I think, a sign of not respecting individuals and their ability to discern and sift through all the information and communications that's received, that we're not smart enough to figure things out for ourselves. So we have to have someone in the federal government tell us what's true and what's not true. So just what could possibly go wrong with this? I just come back to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We need Big Brother. I would say to our viewers, if you've never read 1984, don't read it now because it'll scare you to death because it was so prescient. I think it came out in about 1949, but they had Big Brother there and the Ministry of Truth, to sort everything out because the people supposedly were too stupid to figure things out for themselves. Well, I have a second question about the DGB. Okay. And my question is, what can we do to stop this government disinformation board? And I want to turn to our guest again, Maya, for the first shot at answering that question.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. As you just mentioned, the DGB has been placed on a stay, and the reason for this is because of public pressure. So I would say that keeping the public pressure on and letting the government know that we see what they're doing and we are not going to sit back and take it. The government likes to act big and strong, but as we've seen in the past, when it meets any resistance, it caves immediately. I also like to think back to, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who said this, but he said that evil men only succeed when good men refuse to do nothing. I think that's a great quote for this instance, that this DGB is only going to succeed if we refuse to do anything about it.
That's good. And that builds on what Marty said before, if we the people just sit here on our hands and let the powerful people gain more power, it'll happen. So in the immediate future, we really need to keep the pressure up, and it's the executive branch, it's the White House and Department of Homeland Security. Wouldn't hurt to contact your representative and senator also, but really the executive branch. So Dale, did you have your hand up?
Just wanted to mention, John, what can we do to stop it? There's this group called Convention of States.
Who's that?
It's this small group out there that is proposing that we pass some amendments that might curtail government overreach. So this might be a good place to start, right here.
Okay, well,
I just wanted to mention that.
I invite our viewers to stay tuned because before the end of the hour, we're going to tell them how they can join Convention of States and help to make a difference. And that's a long-term fix.
Yes.
And Maya was talking about, and I was too, that, what we need to do in the short run. And so the short term and the long term have to work together. So let's move on to the second example of government overreach. And that's going to be inflation, something that's plaguing all of us and something that many economists claim has been caused by government actions. And so, again, I'm going to turn to Maya. Maya, what's causing inflation?
Yeah, the simple answer is the theme of tonight is government overreach. Increase in government spending and the government increase in the money supply is what's causing inflation. I recently had the opportunity to write an op-ed with America First Policy Institute about this. And while I was writing the op-ed, I was given multiple databases, and one that they gave me was a list of over 300 economists who stated that it's the Biden administration's overspending and increase in money supply that is causing inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think historically, whenever governments print money, prices go up. There's more money and more competition for limited goods. Ken. Can't hear you, Ken.
We got a caller calling in. Hold on just a second. I think we have George on the line. George, are you there?
Yeah, that's a lot better sounding there. I couldn't hear anything before.
Yeah, we got our panel talking, and you have to kind of hear over that. But you're on, so go ahead and ask your question.
We can hear George. What's your question?
It's more of a comment, actually. I'm watching the show, and somebody asked, well, what can we do about, like, with the information board and all that? The way I heard, the best way to do it is, of course, contacting your legislators. Get hold of your reps and tell them, don't fund the thing. Don't generate the funds in order for the thing to live off of. You kill the money, you kill the club. So that's all I had to say.
Thanks, George.
Yep. Thank you for calling in. Okay. Is there anybody else have? I think Maya hit the home run, right? She hit the ball out of the park on what the cause is. I think Marty signaled me, and then maybe Rick.
Yeah, I was going to say that we need to keep in mind, too, that while the Biden administration's policies have been a big driver in this, we just recently witnessed something where, Congress has to fund these executive orders. If they don't fund it, the money goes nowhere, just like George indicated. However, Congress just approved $41 billion to the Ukraine. Now, there's some good people in the Ukraine, and I feel sorry for them, but on top of everything else we've got going on in this country, this is again spending taxpayer dollars without our consent, and a lot of people were opposed to that, and yet it passed through both houses and got approved. So it's a lot bigger. Unfortunately, it's grown a lot bigger than just the Biden administration.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Rick, was your hand up there?
Yeah, I was just going to make a couple points. I think a lot of the inflation is caused obviously by the government printing money because the government's trying to supply all this stimulus money to cover for COVID. And there's a lot of people out there that are getting this basically free money. I have a real estate friend that, I was asking about, why the price of housing and all that was going up. And she said it's because a lot of people are getting these government checks, the stimulus money that, they're not as cost conscious as they would be with their own money because they're spending somebody else's money or they're spending free money.
Yeah.
And then for me, and I know people probably don't agree with this, but I think a lot of it's too because of what we've done with the minimum wage. Minimum wage has gone up, and I use the example of like McDonald's. When McDonald's was paying $8 an hour, you could get a meal there for, $7-8. But then they come in and now they're getting $15 an hour. But now it costs you, $12 or $15 to get a meal, that type of thing. I might have exaggerated a little on the cost of the meal there, but that sort of thing. So I think as they mandate a raise in minimum wage for employers just turn right around and raise the cost. And by raising that cost, they hurt the very people that, the people with less income that they were supposedly trying to help in the first place.
Yeah, that is the vicious cycle right there. Yep. Okay, Dale, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to make the comment that both parties are guilty of this. This is not something that's just happened under the Biden administration, although they've accentuated the problem. But both parties. You can go back to George Bush when the debt started going up and the national debt. And we were 5 trillion in debt. Then all of a sudden, 10 trillion, 15, 20. It's just, it's been going on under both parties.
Oh, yes, it has. Yep. So it's not a partisan thing.
No.
It's not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. I think it's a power thing. Whoever's in the power gets corrupted, and they want more power and they want more control. And I think, I can't prove it, but I think one of the subtexts here is that those in power want to force more people onto government welfare, because if you depend on the government for your income and your livelihood, you're going to want to keep those same people in power. And so it's a vicious cycle, and it's really past time for we the people to stand up and say no more. Yeah. Okay, I want to move on to our third example of government overreach. And, we're seeing this unprecedented shortage of baby formula. So let me go back to our guest. What should be the government's role in solving the baby formula crisis?
Yeah, the government only has one role in this crisis, and it's to get out of the way and allow the private market to work. This crisis was originally started when the government completely shut down the Abbott lab plant in Michigan due to 4 cases of babies catching a disease from a certain bacteria that they were unable to trace back to the plant. Instead of just taking precautions like they typically do in these types of cases, they went to the extreme and completely shut the plant down, and without even considering the risk or consequences of it. I saw recently on the news parents who have children who rely on baby formula who are running out of formula and are in dire situations now. So while the government may be the cause of this issue, it will not be the solution. So the only role it has is to get out of the way and allow the private market to work.
Solution is in the private sector. The government's main job is to get out of the way. Gary?
Yeah, one of the things that we have is, I think in the United States now, there are only like 3 companies that make baby formula. And when you have a regulatory structure, such as we have with the FDA and all the other regulatory agencies, what tends to happen is they squeeze out the small companies that are unable to compete as well in a highly regulated industry. And so now we're down to 3 companies. When one of them closes a plant, we have a crisis on our hands. It's really a crisis for people who cannot get food for their children. But it's indicative of what happens with a giant administrative state where the government regulation, government control of industry limits competition and squeezes out most of the small players.
Mm-hmm. And Maya said it was Abbott, the Abbott factory that was closed. I think, aren't they the largest manufacturer of baby formula?
I believe they are. Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't matter, but they're one of the 3. And you cut off 1/3 of your retail supply, you're going to have a problem. Ken, what you got for us?
I've got a caller on the line who has a comment or a question. Let's get him on. Dale, are you there?
I'm here.
Go ahead with your question. Go ahead with your question, Dale. We've got you.
Yeah, I'm here. I just had a quick question concerning the federal government overreach. What happens when we're in a situation where the chief executive of our country fails to enforce existing law? And I'm thinking about the crisis on the southern border, by putting in policies that allow this huge immigration crisis to manifest itself. Laws are in the books to prohibit this, yet those laws aren't being enforced. What can we do about this?
Dale, that's a very good question. And he's asking us, what can we do when you've got an executive branch that won't enforce existing law? Anybody have a clue? Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, again, this applies not only to our federal government, but to even our state governments. But you have to constantly remind these people in Congress, in the legislature, that the legislative branch is the only lawmaking body of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Same applies in our states. Our executive branch cannot make law. The judicial branch cannot make law. It has to be passed by the legislative branch. And these people are sitting by and allowing things to happen, just like they've been going on for the last several years. It's been going on for a long time, and people just sit by and let it happen. We, the people, have to stand up and hold our politicians accountable.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
That's the only solution.
And to our caller Dale's point, what can we, the people, do when you've got a president and the whole executive branch that will not enforce existing law? Like, there is a law that Congress passed and the president signed to build a wall across the southern border,
Right.
and there are immigration laws that are not being enforced. What can we do when this happens?
And in this particular case, we've got a judicial system that reports to Congress, and they are not being held accountable by Congress.
Okay.
I've had two pet peeves over my lifetime. One is how there's been a growing change in, you used to hear politicians refer to my fellow Americans. You don't hear that anymore. We're the American people. We're like this third party entity that is somebody other than them, other than their elitist class.
Mm.
And the other thing is, whenever I tell people, whenever you hear the word government, change it out with the word taxpayer, because that's who it is. It's us.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to take on a whole new meaning. And I think that will create a rally cry the more people do that.
It's an interesting idea. Thank you. Gary, did I see your hand?
The remedy for a administration that's not enforcing the law is impeachment. Unfortunately, that's become such a political football that the party, when one party's in power, they will never impeach their own administration. But really, to enforce the law, if the president is not enforcing the law, he should be impeached.
Okay. Dale.
Well, if the Republicans take control of the legislature come the midterms, we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, it does take some time for these things to work themselves out. But let's see. We'll see what happens if the Republicans get control.
Yeah, who knows? I've never had a crystal ball, but knowing that dog eat dog is the rule, I wouldn't be surprised to see an impeachment just to get back at the Democrats for impeaching Trump. Not once but twice, and we'll see what happens. But I highly doubt that the Senate would vote to convict. Highly doubt that. Marty.
Yeah, I think a good part of this answer too, John, is that we need more people like Maya coming into this equation. I think people are starting to step up. I'm hearing the word rhino a whole lot more every day on the news. They're starting to be aware that the answer is not just with the Republican Party. The Republican Party is only as good as its weakest link, and right now there's a lot of weak links running around Washington.
Yeah.
And we've got to get those people out of there. And to do that, you need good candidates, with good conservative values to step up. And that takes a brave person. It takes a really concerned person, a real patriotic person to step up and just put themselves out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Dale.
Speaking of government overreach, could there maybe an amendment proposed that would perhaps give the states some leverage in holding people accountable? You talk about impeachment. Maybe there is a way that through an amendment where the states, if so many voted in favor, could remove someone or start an impeachment, whereas it would otherwise have to start from the Justice Department or something. I'm just throwing that out. Did Mark Levin in his book Liberty Amendments, did he have a proposed amendment that would?
I don't know. Does anybody
in some way to this? It seems to me I can't recall, but
does anybody
Dale, you bring up a good point, and a lot of states, in fact, our Attorney General here in Indiana has been a party with many other states opposing a lot of the actions that the Biden administration and the Justice Department have taken. So the states can, by resolution or by their attorney general teaming with others, can go after the Justice Department for things that are illegal. But because they're all part of the same justice system. But again, it's a numbers game, and it's got to get its way to court, and it's a long process.
Well, maybe there could be an amendment that would give more power to that effort, make that a more meaningful effort. So, just a thought.
Well, when we get 34 states to call for the convention, the delegates who go to that convention can talk about, any amendments they want, but the amendments have to fall in one of our three categories.
Right.
Limit spending, limit the size and reach of the federal government, and term limits. So,
Right.
Under that limiting the size and scope of the government, maybe an amendment to where states could initiate an impeachment action.
Right.
That would be a whole new ball game, because for all these hundreds of years under the Constitution, it's pretty clear that impeachments are the sole prerogative of the House of Representatives. And so that would be maybe a game changer. Something to think about. Okay, we're going to take a short break right now. We've got a video from one of our contributors that really gets at the thing we talked about before the panel came on the screen, which is protecting women's sports. And in Indiana, it's girls, elementary, junior high, and high school sports. So let's see this video, and we'll be right back. John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. My word, what kind of craziness is going on in the world now? You have biological men pretending to be women and wiping out women's records in college athletics, swimming, track and field, and so on. Well, have you ever noticed that you don't have women transitioning into men and trying to compete in men's sports? You don't have that. But you have the opposite. Because these guys got smart, if you want to call it smart. They got clever. And they figured out, hey, I'm kind of mediocre in my sport. But if I say that I'm a girl, I can wipe them out. And I can establish brand new records. My goodness, what kind of a world is it that we live in, where men pretend to be women and beat women? I don't think the NCAA is going to listen to me, or the International Olympic Committee is going to listen to me, but here's an idea. There ought to be three divisions: men's division, women's division, and transgender division. And let likes compete with likes. Who was that man? Quick change artist, I guess, because he changed clothes in between the scenes there. But we wanted to play that I made it a while ago, and we wanted to play that particular video tonight because we're talking about government overreach. And here you have your Indiana legislature, which both houses passed with overwhelming majorities to prohibit biological men from competing in girls' sports in the school system. And the governor vetoes that. And so tomorrow we hope to see an overturn of that veto. And as Marty pointed out earlier, it just takes a simple majority in each house. Simple majority. And it'll be the law in the great state of Indiana, as they say. Well, we've been talking about government overreach, and we focused on three current examples. Let's jump into a fourth example. Let's take a look at Roe v. Wade and the impending Supreme Court decision on what's called the Dobbs case. Many legal experts are saying that the court's 1973 ruling in Roe v. Wade was flawed. So, Maya, let's start with you again. What was wrong with the Supreme Court ruling in Roe versus Wade back in 1973, a year or two before you were born?
Yeah, so the main problem with it is that they read the 14th Amendment out of context. The drafters, the culture of the time of the 14th Amendment when it was drafted, and the people who voted for the 14th Amendment to become an amendment all held the opinion that abortion was morally wrong, and therefore the 14th Amendment did not cover abortion rights. When the Supreme Court stated that the 14th Amendment does cover abortion rights, it completely ignored the original context in which the 14th Amendment was created. And it also created a right that did not previously exist. And as we know from our Declaration of Independence, our rights cannot be created as they are unalienable and given from our Creator. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the Supreme Court completely overstepped its boundaries.
Wow, that really says it. And you're a rising senior, you say, at Patrick Henry College? Well, you have learned in college, or maybe before, one of the greatest lessons of life, and it's one I learned in college, the importance of context. And you said they overlooked the context in which the 14th Amendment, was written, and absolutely right. Anyone else on the panel got an idea about what was wrong with the Supreme Court ruling? Gary?
Well, there was a lot wrong with it, and it really, they rested in part on the idea of a person's right to privacy, which specifically was a woman's right to privacy. And in a sense, this was the worst of government overreach because it ignored the rights of the person who was most affected, which is the child. And it's really, in many ways, this decision parallels the Dred Scott case, in which the Supreme Court said that the slaves were not legally persons, and the Supreme Court said the unborn were not legally persons. Even though it was debatable, they said they were not, and they refused to let the states continue to have the power to make these decisions. And that was another big problem because the federal government was never supposed to get into the nitty-gritty of deciding what state laws should be and shouldn't be concerning things that had been historically always handled at the state level.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Well, I want to move on to my next question about Roe, and it is from a constitutional standpoint. Should Roe be overturned, and why or why not? Maya, first crack.
Yeah, from a constitutional standpoint, it should absolutely be overturned because the Constitution does not account for this right at all. The Supreme Court is reading something into the Constitution which is not there, and as we are seeing currently, it is very dangerous to overstep the bounds of the Constitution because once you do it once, there is no going back, and it completely erodes our objective standard that we have.
Mm-hmm. No going back, and as a human being, I'm thinking of the 65 million potential citizens who never saw the light of day because of Roe v. Wade. 65 million abortions and counting. And, the heartache, the human loss, the tragedy, can't go back, can't go back. Anyone else on the round table have a comment? Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, and to take that one step further, John, it's 65 million souls that have been lost on the basis of a ruling on a court case.
Yeah.
Well, that was never codified by a law.
And again, it's not the court's role to make law.
That's right.
It is not. And that's one of the ways that our federal government has gotten off course. And, from my humble opinion, I think Congress really, over the last several decades, has abdicated its responsibility, and they've delegated much of the rulemaking to federal agencies. And that's where a lot of the nitty-gritty of these rules are written. Now, not the case in Roe v. Wade, but in that case, it was the court, overstepping its bounds. And I'm not a legal scholar, but I've heard many talk, and I haven't heard one legal scholar saying that it was a sound decision.
Right.
Everyone I've heard said it was a flawed decision. Dale, did I see your hand?
I just kind of wanted to add on to this. How have we over what 50 years come to believe that this is law, that this in fact was law? How many times have you heard reference be made to the law of abortion rights, federal abortion rights?
Lots of times.
And I know you've already mentioned the overreach of the Supreme Court is such a prime example of the court going beyond its original intent.
Yes. Rick, I think
chime in on that.
Okay, thank you. Rick, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, I think this is, as far as government overreach, I think this is a good example of that I think the federal government is trying to legislate morality. And the reason it's such a divisive subject, you can argue either way, I guess. I mean, I know what my beliefs are, but they've taken the beliefs of some people, and by making it a national law, they've forced other people's morality upon everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, the people who disagree with abortion are upset about that because you're forcing your view on me. And so that's why it belongs at the state level rather than the national level, where we're not enforcing somebody else's morality on everybody.
Yeah. And that amendment that I quoted from earlier says all other powers are reserved to the states and to the people, or to the people. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I've got one more question here, and I'm going to ask Maya, if Roe is overturned, what will happen with abortion in the United States?
Yeah, this is a very important question given the recent leak of the Dobbs case. A common misconception with Roe v. Wade is that if it was overturned, it would make abortion illegal. Roe v. Wade only guarantees an individual's right to an abortion. Therefore, it acts as a barrier to prevent states from making abortion illegal. As a result, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, it would not make abortion illegal. Rather, it would remove the barriers that prevent states from making it illegal. So, as a result of Roe v. Wade being overturned, it would send the abortion decision back to individual states. And now there are two sides to this. There's the sides that it would restrict abortion rights. For example, 33 states are predicted to ban abortion outright if Roe v. Wade is overturned. States like Texas, Utah, the great state of Indiana. However, there's another side that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And if Roe v. Wade is overturned, that means a lot of the cases that were decided on Roe v. Wade, a big one being Casey versus Planned Parenthood, which is the leading precedent for abortion, would also be overturned. And the important part about Casey is that it provides us with the viability test, which prevented abortions past viability. But with Roe v. Wade overturned, it would also overturn Casey, and that means the viability test would also be overturned. So that means that states could equally restrict abortion rights, but they could also expand them. So, for example, 15 states like New York and California, would be expected to expand abortion rights, possibly up to birth, maybe even after birth. So it's important to understand that overturning Roe v. Wade would send the abortion decision back to the states, and that there would be an expansion and a restriction of abortion rights.
Depending on what state we're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it belongs to the states. The Constitution is very clear. All other powers belong to the states or to the people. And so it would just be setting things right. And mark my words, that there is no reason for the predicted riots. Homeland Security issued a memo last week saying, we're gearing up for expected riots all over the country if Roe is overturned. There's no reason for that nonsense. No reason at all. Before we move to the closing, does anybody else have a comment on this issue? Dale?
So if it's overturned, abortion is still going to be available. You just may have to travel to another state to have it done. Is basically it, right?
I think so.
Yes.
I think
But
so.
I was not aware of the implications that this might have on cases that have been decided based upon Roe versus Wade. That's intriguing. I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that.
That was a new one on me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That that could open a whole
Yeah.
Pandora's box, couldn't it?
Called the domino effect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot to think about. We could have gone on for a couple of hours. You know, these were only 4 examples of government overreach. We're not going to do that. Ken has a final comment. What is it, Ken?
Not a final one. I wanted to say our comment board tonight has been very active, and obviously not enough time to even get into all the areas that this discussion tonight exploded into. So I just want to say that for those that have commented on the on our chat room board tonight, thank you for your participation. If you would like to pursue your question that wasn't either addressed tonight, or maybe it's on a different topic, feel free to send us an email. Dale, if you want to send that, there you go. Put that email address up. Feel free to post your question to us here in Raise Your Voice COS at gmail.com, and we'll get to you individually on that. There's a lot of stuff that went on in our comment room. So I just wanted to point that out, that we wanted to get those addressed if you would like further clarification on a lot of those. And there was one other interesting being that we are talking about going to the State House tomorrow to talk about our governor. There was one question I want to show real quick that popped up, and just to throw it out. Maybe we don't want to even get into this tonight, but we had one person ask about what we thought about Holcomb going to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland this past weekend. Anybody want to comment on that, or is this something we should put off to another roundtable?
Well, Christina, thank you for the question. I didn't know that he went to the World Economic Forum, so I don't have a thought about it.
It was not paid for by tax dollars, which was encouraging, but by the Indiana Economic Development Group. And, this is, I guess, from my perspective, I think take it as a positive step. We'll be able to override a veto tomorrow, because it was time for him to get out of Dodge.
Yeah,
it is a global, again, another global attendance that he's attending there. So we're getting into this global situation where they want other people from other parts of the world to determine what happens in our country.
Well, I believe in being a world citizen, but I don't believe in giving up our national sovereignty. Okay. And I don't think any of us would agree to that, Well, I want to thank each member of our panel for your time, for your attention, and for bringing your knowledge and wisdom to the roundtable. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next month. And now, here's a video that we want to show you of some young people giving their answers to the question, is the federal government broken?
Our government is definitely broken.
The EPA is totally out of control.
I mean, VA is completely broken.
If a private business were to run things like the government, they would be out of business like that.
Our tax system is ridiculous.
And how are we supposed to pay for that and our student loans and find a place to live with no job? I mean, it's almost as if nobody really cares what happens to us anymore.
There are so many problems that we have, and that's just going to be placed on us.
My generation especially, we need to lead, because enough is enough. DC needs to listen, and we need to take the power back to the people.
And so I invite you to join Convention of States right now by visiting conventionofstates.com. Easy address, conventionofstates.com. There you can join Convention of States by signing our petition. And there it is. You fill in your name, your email address, phone number if you want to. That one is optional. And then after you do that and submit it, you can click the Take Action button at the top of the page, where you can really help to make a difference. Once you do that, you see this page, and you can click that Become a Leader button and apply for a leadership position. And you can see, I'm not going to take time reading them all to you, They're all right there. We need leaders on the state level, no matter what state you live in. I'm assuming there's a few people outside of Indiana who are watching. Now is the time to visit conventionofstates.com, click Take Action, and help us make history. Now, at the beginning, I told you that we have an email newsletter, and if you want to subscribe to it, it's free. It's a free subscription. Here's the link to it. It's conventionofstates.com/email-subscribe. Pretty easy address, conventionofstates.com/email-subscribe. Well, that brings us to the end of this month's roundtable. Before I say goodbye, I want to remind you of our next broadcast, Indiana Live, on May the 30th. That's next Monday night. And remember that we will be back on the 4th Monday of June for our next roundtable. That'll be June the 27th at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you then. I'm John Ackerman for COS Indiana Roundtable.